All right, today we're diving into a real medical mystery, one that's hidden deep inside the human back. It's a story about chronic pain, a super common procedure, and a key muscle that might just be paying the price for our relief.
Millions of us are looking for relief from that nagging chronic back pain. And there's this one procedure that's really popular for how well it works. But what if, and this is the big question, what if that same treatment is secretly causing another problem, one that weakens the very foundation of our spine?
So just how big of a deal is this? Well, it's massive. Chronic low back pain is one of the top reasons for disability all over the world, and for a huge chunk of those people, we're talking over 30%, the pain starts in these tiny little joints in the spine called facet joints.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The key to this whole puzzle might not be in the bones or the joints at all. Nope. The biggest clue, it seems, is hiding deep inside the muscles that hold everything together. Okay, so it's time to introduce the star of our show. It's a muscle you've probably never even heard of, but it's absolutely essential for a healthy back. Let's meet the multifidus.
I want you to think of your spine like the mast on a big sailboat. Well, the multifidus muscles, they're like all the little guide wires and ropes that keep that mast steady and strong, constantly making tiny adjustments. They are the spine's #1 stabilizer.
And you really can't overstate how important they are. These little muscles provide something like 2/3 of the stability and stiffness in your lower back. I mean, without a healthy multifidus, the whole system is kind of wobbly. So what happens when this super important muscle gets damaged? Well, a study from 2024 gives us what you might call the smoking gun, that first real piece of evidence that connects the health of this muscle directly to pain.
So these researchers, led by Dr. Dan Pan, did something really clever. They took muscle samples from people who had already had back surgery. They made two groups, one group that was still dealing with low back pain, and another group that was, thankfully, pain-free.
And what they found under the microscope, wow, it was night and day. The folks still in pain, their muscle fibers were smaller, which is a classic sign of atrophy. Basically, the muscle is wasting away. They also had a ton of scar tissue. The pain-free group, though, their muscle tissue looked much, much healthier. The study's conclusion was incredibly direct. They said that the amount of damage to the multifidus muscle was, and I quote, closely related to dysfunction and pain. The bottom line? A damaged muscle was directly tied to a painful back. It shows that a weak multifidus can actually be a primary cause of chronic pain. Okay, so we've identified the multifidus muscle as a key player. Now our investigation turns to a new suspect, a very common medical procedure that messes with the nerves that control this exact muscle. Let me introduce you to lumbar radiofrequency ablation, or LRFA for short. For that facet joint pain we talked about, this procedure is the second most common treatment out there. It's a real go-to for doctors and patients. Here's the gist of how it works. First, doctors pinpoint the exact little nerves that are sending pain signals from that joint up to your brain. Then, they use a special probe to heat up that nerve and basically burn it a little. That lesion stops the pain signal in its tracks, and boom, the patient gets relief. Sounds pretty straightforward, right? A simple fix. But here's the twist. It turns out, those exact same nerves that send pain signals, they also send the go signals to the multifidus muscle, telling it to fire up and keep your spine stable. And that raises the million-dollar question, doesn't it? By burning the nerve to stop pain, are we accidentally cutting the power to a critical, stabilizing muscle? To figure that out, let's look at a big scientific review that tried to piece all the clues together. So, this review looked at 6 different studies on this very topic, and what they found was, well, kind of a mess. Most of the studies were pretty small, they all used different methods, and the overall quality of the evidence was graded as poor to fair. And the most important part, the results were totally inconsistent. I mean, just look at this. It's completely contradictory. You had a couple of studies that found the muscle did shrink after the procedure. Okay, that makes sense. But then another one found no change at all. And then, get this, one study actually said the muscle got bigger. How does that even happen?
So, what's the verdict? The honest answer is, the scientific jury is still out. Based on what we know right now, we just can't say for sure if LRFA causes major long-term damage to this crucial muscle. The clues just don't add up to a clear answer. So where does all this confusion leave patients and doctors? Well, it puts us smack in the middle of a huge dilemma in modern back pain treatment.
How do you balance getting rid of pain right now with keeping the back strong for the long haul?
This really lays out the tough choice. On one hand, you've got the short-term win. LRFA is often fantastic at relieving pain. But on the other hand, you have this potential, and I have to stress, still unproven risk of weakening a muscle that's fundamental to a healthy spine down the road.
Okay, so let's boil this all down. What do you really need to remember? Number 1, the multifidus muscle is a huge deal for spine health. Number 2, a weak, damaged multifidus is a recipe for more pain. Number 3, a really common procedure, LFRA, might affect this muscle. And finally, number 4, right now, the science is just too fuzzy to give us a definite yes or no on that risk.
And all of this leaves us with a really deep question for the future of how we treat back pain. Is it enough to just turn off a pain signal? Or do we need to be thinking bigger, focusing on treatments that not only stop the hurt, but also help restore the function of the very muscles that are meant to keep us strong and stable?